Alright, it is turn 28, and this turn I received one of my regular reminders that I am not very good at scripting, actually. Or rather, that I forget to take things into account. So, we had a couple of big battles. We started the invasion of Shinuyama. We took this swamp with no resistance. There was literally no one here, just a few province defense. And a significant army attacked Cerny. Also, I found another copper idol, so my air income is going up, which is great. But in Cerny, Shinuyama attacked back with an army led by 5 Bakemono sorcerers, dangerous, and with 1 Uba, with a whole bunch of nature gems and a thistle mace to give her 3 nature. Now this was the thing I had failed to account for. I had been thinking, oh, Shinuyama, fire, water, earth, death. I can handle all of that. Spamming skeletons, I can probably deal with it with flaming arrows. What I forgot was Ubas can have 2 nature on a random, and then holding a thistle mace, that makes them 3 nature. And when they're 3 nature, they can cast Howl. Now, in a lot of circumstances, Howl isn't hugely dangerous, but against a nation like mine, which relies mainly on lots and lots of crappy human troops and lots of relatively weak human mages, Howl can be a serious problem. Just watch. Notice how I'm keeping the wolves off my back line pretty well with archers, but they're kind of starting to build up over here as the Skeleспam is incoming. Yeah, up here my Gigantes are getting killed. They're slowing the enemy down. My mages have gone off script and are now throwing earth buffs onto the troops nearby them, which they tend to do. They're now casting Blade Wind, and Blade Wind is actually super useful in this circumstance because it wipes out a whole bunch of the chaff that is really just becoming aggressively thick up at the front. The archers are also getting a lot of kills. My Heal-It warriors are going into combat, and unfortunately they're already routing some of them. Back here the archers are still doing a good job keeping the wolves off, and my shackled mages have Iron Skin, so the wolves can't really hurt them much. But more wolves are coming. Up here, Big McLarge Huge has finished his spellcasting cycle and is now going into combat. And he's really, really good at combat. Like, he's very good at combat. Unfortunately, he's about to be alone because these Heal-Its, once they run out of ammunition, which they will do, they don't have much more to contribute to the battle. And once they don't have much more to contribute to the battle, and with their friends running away, they will start to run away. And there they start to go. They're going into melee against the wolves, which is fine, I guess. The Blade Winds are having less effect on these soulless warriors, because the soulless warriors all have shields and very, very basic protection. These guys are just Skelespamming continuously. One sorcerer appears to have been misscripted or something. He's run up close, and he's casting spells. Here's the problem. This blob right here, I can't kill this blob as fast as it grows. Like, don't get me wrong, Big McLarge Huge kills a lot of people, and he has not taken much damage because he has 31 protection, and he's fatigue neutral with fatigue 3. So he's killing people. But my archers are going into melee, where they suck, because they're out of ammunition. My infantry is routed. My mages are not casting because the Trophimos Oppressors have routed, because all the infantry routed. And so, what happens is, a couple of my slaves get away. Some of them get totally surrounded by wolves, and the wolves just keep coming. And the soulless just keep coming. And they form a seething ball of wolves and undead around Big McLarge Huge. And despite the fact that he can never run, and despite the fact that he has 31 protection, enough attacks add up to damage. Critical damage. Which critical damage against him is still almost nothing, but when enough of them swing over a long enough period of time, his defense skill is reliably 0 because of the harassed penalty and his berserk. His protection is still holding off the vast, vast majority of the attacks. And like I said, he's still killing a lot of people, but eventually a wolf rolls high and does damage. It requires exploding dice, but it happens. And it requires exploding dice. But it does eventually happen. And so faced with literally infinite units, from the wolves coming from the edges of the map, and the soulless and the skeletons who he cannot kill as fast as they are spawned, Big McLarge Huge eventually dies. To the end, he never has any afflictions. And he just stands there killing pretty much 3 guys around, 2 or 3 guys around, just die, because he's geared, but eventually he goes down. And notice that there are more Shinuyama units on the field than there were when the battle started. So, in Cerny, we got over 400 kills, if I've done my math right. We killed well over 400 units, but only 62 of those were permanent units, and none of them were mages. The combination of Skelospam and Howl is much more effective than I had given it credit for, especially because I had forgotten to account for Howl entirely. I had been thinking, oh, Skelospam, I can probably chop my way through enough Skelospam to more or less fatigue the Bakemono Sorcerers out. Because you will notice, let's just put it on fast forward real quick. They start Skelospamming here, and they're just Skelospamming. He's already up to fatigue 65. This one down here is at fatigue 118, already fatigued out and only going to be casting about every 3 rounds. This one's only at fatigue 40 because he's a death 3 and he has 11 reinvigoration with earth power. Bakemono Sorcerers can spam a lot of skeletons very quickly because they are earth death crosspath mages, and so they can reinvigorate themselves. They're like Buddhas in that way. But, I mean, eventually you can slow their rate down enough that you can theoretically cut through it. The problem just was, I lost all my troops before that point happened. I did not have enough troops to smash through this, or I didn't have tough enough and good enough summoned troops to smash through this. Things that can stop this. A lot of fire elementals. Fire elementals can burn through undead very quickly because they have fire shield and are ethereal. Earth elementals, potentially, because they can trample, could do a lot of damage, although they will tend to die more quickly. Air elementals might be able to disrupt this by jumping to the back and attacking the Bakemono Sorcerers directly. An air elemental attacking a Bakemono Sorcerer would probably be able to kill him, or at least hold him down. We can see Shinuyama's Bless here. It's Precision, Reinvigoration, and Far Caster. He's also got Regeneration, because the Uba, I think, started casting Regeneration. She's fatigued out, and she still has quite a few nature gems. So, this was a very serious loss for me. I lost a Tyrant, which is a big blow, despite getting 130 kills. I lost 5 of my Shackled Mages. I didn't lose either of my Oppressors, fortunately. They fled before the Shackled Mages could, and so they got off the field. The 2 of them also got 47 kills, which is pretty impressive, between the Thunder Strikes and the Blade Winds. But it was all garbage. It just wasn't worth killing. What I needed to do was I needed to get to the back line somehow and kill the Bakemono Sorcerers. That's hard to do when there are wolves spawning everywhere because they screw up your scripting. The Heelot Archers also performed solidly. I mean, they got more than 1 kill each, but once again, most of it was skeletons and wolves. Same for the Heelot Warriors. The Heelot Warriors actually scored a higher than 1-to-1 kill to death ratio against wolves. So, retreat details. Most of the units that retreated were saved, including all the Shackled Mages and the Oppressors, which is good. None of my commanders were killed while retreating. That said, it puts me in a bit of a pickle. Oh, in this battle, like I said, literally nothing there. So, I could push forward with this army, but this army does not have the magic in it that I would need to stop Skelospam plus Howl. It just doesn't. Yeah, I don't have that magic lined up. Because for that magic, I really need Conjuration 5. Evocation 5 for Storm plus Thunderstrike is great. Thunderstrikes are very solid, but Thunderstrikes mainly work on singular large concentrations of troops. On infinitely respawning hordes, my communions will run out of fatigue if they're casting Thunderstrike. What I need is elementals. I need air elementals, fire elementals, water and earth elementals. Less useful earth elementals could potentially work, but mainly I need fire and earth elementals. Now, fortunately, every Trophimos Oppressor can cast fire elementals, and half of them can summon air elementals. So, if I have the gems, which my gem income is now seriously hurting me, But if I have the gems for it, I can get together a big pile of elementals pretty quickly because they can just keep casting. They don't really run out of fatigue if they're in a communion. So I'm pulling back with my army. If I push forward, it's going to be isolated by these forces, which I presume can do exactly the same thing this force can, and destroyed. Acid Storm is a great spell and all, but it's not going to keep this force alive if it is surrounded by wolves. Eventually the mages will run once a wolf gets in to try and bite at them, and at the very least they'll stop casting. So what I need is, I need more flank protection, and I need a whole lot of elementals. So, I'm concentrating forces at this fort, moving up a whole bunch more slaves and masters to form a communion. I'm concentrating forces at this fort, moving up my tyrants and slaves from this direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slaves plus this lizard shaman. I'm changing my research over to Conjuration. It will take me a few turns to hit Conjuration 5. Once it does, I'll actually be able to cast Howl myself, and casting Howl to counter his Howl is probably the best thing I have to stop it, because if you cast Howl and the enemy casts Howl, what happens is you end up with a snarling eternal wolf fight on the edges of the battlefield. So that would be really, really good. I would love that. Just to distract his wolves. Giving my troops time to kill his, because almost his entire army died. The mages obviously didn't, but his infantry could not stand up to what my communion and my flaming archers could lay down. That part went fine. It was the wolves and the skeletons that stopped me, and if it had been only the skeletons or only the wolves, I could have dealt with it. So, I could theoretically drop everything on this army and summon a bunch of elementals, and have like an apocalyptic battle with 4 tyrants and elementals and all kinds of magic. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that if I do that, this army is actually going to advance, and the troops coming in from the side will miss it while these troops have to fight it alone. And if that happens, then these troops will lose because they don't have the magic power to spam elementals or anything. They don't have enough communion slaves to form a communion. All they have is Slab Brickjaw. So Slab's going to stay here and capture slaves, I think. We're moving this army back. We're concentrating a bigger communion here with a lot more masters. We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 communion masters. Pronos, incidentally, his recuperation is not keeping up with the disease. He is still dying and gaining more afflictions. So I'm just kind of have to hope. I don't have time to adjust my research at this point to reach Thaumaturgy. I was hoping that would work. If it doesn't work, I'm going to lose Pronos. Hopefully at least recuperation clear... if recuperation can clear the disease, then he'll be fine. And I think recuperation should be able to do that. But I think it'll be random whether it clears the disease first or clears one of the other afflictions, which won't actually help him. So we'll see if he lives. He's got about 6 turns left, I think, 6 or 7. It'll be an issue. With a chest wound and crippled, he's not useful in combat anymore. He's just not. His combat speed is 2, and his encumbrance is 8. So if I send him into combat, he would just die. I'm actually going to take his gear away from him for that reason, and give it to somebody else. Like, let's give it to Astarius. Astarius has 4 Earth natively, so right now I have him scripted just to Blade Wind. Hippolytus has an Air, which isn't terribly useful. Slab Brickjaw. You could probably use a shield instead of that. And let's give you a Mace of Eruption instead of a Frostbrand. Frostbrand's cold damage doesn't work on the undead because they're almost entirely cold resistant. So we will still take the Frostbrand into battle. It's better than nothing, but against skeletons it doesn't do much work. I just forged them to have something. So the army is all moving back except for Genocidicles. Genocidicles, who is wearing his boots, has map move of 31 and also 3 native reinvigoration, so he can make himself fatigue neutral. Right now he has extra encumbrance because he's in a swamp, but once he moves out of a swamp, that will go away, and he'll be fatigue neutral when he earth powers. So he's moving up here, and he's going to lock down Shinuyama for a turn. The only way this fails is if Great Gray Shrike sees it coming and patrols with a bunch of Bakemono sorcerers and locks him down with skeletons and kills him. Which is possible, but I think low percentage. I'm willing to take that gamble. The local defense here is almost nothing. And even if he's moving troops out, which I think he probably will be, I think he's probably going to move these troops down south to try and fight me. If he does that, he'll move out, I'll hit the province, and I'll just stop recruitment here for a turn, which would be great. I would love to stop him from being able to recruit anything. If he's halfway through recruiting a Bakemono sorcerer, which he may well be, it'll lock him down. Then, once I hit Shinuyama, Genocidicles will be able to bounce around, and it'll be very, very hard to predict where he's going. It'll be very, very hard to cover everywhere he's going with sufficient forces to stop him. Because, like, an Uba who casts Howl might be able to stop him. Potentially could, or one who can cast Swarm repeatedly. Those might be able to stop him. 2 or 3 Bakemono sorcerers spamming Horde of Skeletons can almost certainly stop him. But the requirement to blanket the entirety of his territory with mages and take them away from the war effort, I think is probably worth risking 1 geared tyrant. I mean, this is expensive gear, don't get me wrong, like the Armor of Souls. I actually don't really need him to have the Armor of Souls for this purpose, because they're not casting magic resistance negates spells. Yeah, let's not risk the Armor of Souls. Let's give the Armor of Souls to this guy to carry away. He doesn't really need it for armor purposes. He has his Gleaming Caress, so he should be fine. Yeah, let's at least save that, because that's a rare item that I don't want taken away. But I've also given Genocidicles a couple of fire gems, so as he's bouncing around, once we get to the point where we have researched Conjuration 5, which will be in like 3 or 4 turns. 4 turns, I think. In about 4 turns, once we've got Conjuration 5. It might be 3, actually, if my research keeps going up, which it will, of course. At that point, he'll be able to cast Fire Elementals, which he can do natively. Phoenix Power, 2 Fire Elementals, full size, and then he can buff himself and go into combat. So that's a possibility. And that would actually make his rating much more effective, and I think if he did that, then Howl would no longer be able to stop him. Alternatively, of course, if I hit Enchantment 5, he can actually cast Horde of Skeletons himself. It's not a very efficient use of his time, but he can do it. So, we're pulling back to the forts, we're concentrating magical power in the forts, and we're kind of trying to see where he moves. If I were him, I think I would take this gang of mages and attack this fort immediately. And the reason I would do that is because this battle showed him that either I don't have the magic to stop his tactics, or I had failed to account for his tactics and script for them. He knows that I have at least Evocation 4 because I was casting Thunderstrike. He knows that I have at least Enchantment 4 because I cast Flaming Arrows. Beyond that, he doesn't know what I have. I know that he has Enchantment 5 and Conjuration 5, because Conjuration 5 is what... yes, Conjuration 5 is what you need for Howl, and Enchantment 5 is what you need for Horde of Skeletons. So he's probably a little ahead of me in research. I also know he has Construction because he had a Vine Mace. I'm sorry, a Thistle Mace. And that takes... yeah, that takes Construction 4. So he's a little ahead of me in research. He probably hasn't spread out quite as much. I don't think I saw him cast any alteration spells. No, I did not see any alteration spells, so he probably hasn't researched alteration. 'Cause... is personal regeneration not an alteration spell? What's personal regen? It must be enchantment. Yeah, it's enchantment. So he was casting that in enchantment. Okay. Yeah, he probably skipped alteration, I imagine, and he may well have skipped evocation too, because I have not seen any evocation from him. So he probably focused entirely on conjuration and enchantment, which is a perfectly reasonable strategy given what he has, and he will eventually branch into evocation just because he does have some cool spells available like Banefire and such. Over here, I'm moving through into this area. He doesn't have many troops over here, so I can just take a province from him. I need to get these troops in. Yeah, let's just keep moving, to be honest. Aristottle, you were summoning lesser fire elementals, which works well. You used up all your gems, though. So, you've got Iron Skin, get Fire Shield and Earth Power. Oh, Fire Shield is one thing that could definitely help in a situation like that, and I didn't have it scripted, which is totally my fault. If Big McLarge had Fire Shield, he would have been killing those guys off a lot more quickly, because they would have been immolating themselves by attacking him consistently. He might have been able to advance if he'd had Fire Shield active. I need to go and test that. I don't know exactly how effective it is. But with the Fire Shield up, I mean, the Fire Shield from these guys would do significant armor-piercing damage. Less on the ones with long weapons, so the Soulless with spears would probably still be able to hold him in place for quite some time. But the wolves, for instance, wolves would just burn themselves to death on Fire Shield very, very quickly. And skeletons without spears would also burn themselves to death fairly quickly. So that might be that's definitely worth doing if I have my tyrants going into melee. Probably that's what I'm going to have to do. Next battle, tyrants up front, Iron Skin, Fire Shield, Earth Power, Charge, and everybody else spamming elementals as hard as they can. It'll use up a lot of gems, but I think if I do that, I can beat his armies, and if I beat his armies, I will slaughter a lot of Bakemono Sorcerers, and losing a bunch of Bakemono Sorcerers at once will be a big blow to him. I will definitely try to cut off retreat provinces, if at all possible, to make sure I kill them. Genocidicles and his fast-moving brother, Idiocrates, might be very vital to doing that. But yeah, I'm just kind of cycling through here. I'm going to be pushing provinces into Shiniyama's territory as quickly as I can. He can pull off the same thing with armies over here, and I'm not sure if I have good counters for it, especially because I kind of have to bring gems with me. I actually need to take this fort, is the thing. My army has 49 siege strength, and I am busting the fort down. So there's not much there, clearly. Moderately damaged, more time is required. That probably means a fort defense of like 10 to 20. And moving this army in should knock it down in one turn, I think. And then I should be able to assault it. So in 2 turns I should have this province, which will also give me 2 extra fire gems per turn, which in this situation would be very useful. So that's pretty much what I'm doing this turn. I am still searching for a couple of magic sites. I've searched a lot of places for magic sites. All of these guys are staying in place because these guys are my defense against Pythium deciding to come in while I'm busy. Over here, however, the air random slaves are moving out here so that they can help with thunder strikes and summoning air elementals, because summoning elementals does cost quite a bit of fatigue. In particular, summoning full-size elementals costs a lot of fatigue, and the non-air slaves in a communion that's trying to do that, or the off-path slaves in a communion that's trying to summon elementals, will go unconscious pretty quickly unless the communion is big. So we will carry on. I think I can still win this war. He pulled a surprise on me. It was a good play. I should have accounted for it, and I didn't. And so I lost a battle there. I lost a lot of my army. I did not lose the core parts. I still have the Trophimos Oppressors. I did lose a Tyrant, and that's a big blow, but I've still got a Tyrant here, and I've still got 2 more Tyrants moving up. So my Tyrant count is actually still increasing. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna be able to pull it off, and I'm going to bring all these Gigante Warriors in, and the Gigante Warriors will also help because they can basically block for the Tyrants while the Tyrants are buffing up and going into battle. Yeah. The Frostbrand is a bit of an issue because the Frostbrand, like I said, the Frostbrand really does not help me fight my way through. Unfortunately, my other option, the Mace of Eruption, It doesn't help me fight my way through skeletons, which is what I need to do. Unfortunately, the Mace of Eruption costs 10 fire gems, and I need fire gems in order to spam fire elementals. The way I could get it by alchemizing death gems. That would hurt me in death a little bit. I would be up to 3 revenants anyway. I think I might do that. Because, let me see, you're forging a Girdle of Might right now with my only hammer, so that's reinvigoration. That's also really important. Because my guys don't have full reinvigoration gear. Slab Brickjaw has full reinvigoration gear. He doesn't need that much, actually. So let's give him the boots. Let's give Astarius the Girdle. Because 3 reinvigoration is the breakpoint at which, when they earth power, they're fatigue neutral, while berserk. So having 3 reinvigoration is super valuable. Having 6 reinvigoration is merely good. I mean, it's a good idea, don't get me wrong. Later in the game, I will definitely want my guys to have more reinvigoration than that, but 3 is really the break point. So he's got sufficient reinvigoration. He's got sufficient reinvigoration. Both of them have sufficient reinvigoration. Yeah. I think that will work. And then, instead of a Girdle of Might, you can forge a Mace of Eruption, which will cost you 8 gems. That leaves me with 5 Earth Gems. And I could actually spend them forging another Girdle anyway. Astarius has one. Yeah, that might be a good idea. Or what else could I forge with 5 Earth Gems? Godslayer Spears, unfortunately, will not help me here. I'm not being killed by Sacreds, I'm just being killed by things. This is a funny item, the Pebble Pouch, but not a useful one. Honestly, the Boots of the Behemoth might be a decent idea. The problem is that trampling costs a bunch of fatigue. Yeah, trampling costs... I don't know the exact amount, but trampling costs extra fatigue. So... I feel like that's not a good idea. I need to look into that. I need to examine whether that's usable. But right now, I'm not going to do that. Great Swords of Sharpness are good dueling weapons, but not good chaff-killing weapons. Yeah, let's forge another thing there. And then, so next turn I'll have 9 fire gems, plus the 6 these guys are carrying. I already have 5 air gems there. That's 9. And 14 plus 5. So I'll have 19 air gems. So mostly I'll be able to summon a lot of air elementals and some fire elementals as well. Okay, so that's going to be the elemental strategy. If these guys go and besiege this fort, we're going to attack from that fort. If they besiege this fort, we're going to attack from this fort. And we're going to try and catch their army, ideally their combined army, but at least one of their armies, and crush it with ours. This does kind of depend on them besieging one of my forts. And even then, they might move into my heartland in order to cause havoc. If they do that, then I'm going to move into their heartland, because I think I can probably cause some havoc of my own, especially if my tyrants are free to split off and take provinces. Because if that's so, then I can take a lot of provinces very quickly. And I think fire-shielded tyrants can burn their way through at least some Skelespam. Like, he would have to concentrate forces in order to stop a fire-shielded tyrant. So, that's going to be the turn. Also, I'm about to break into this fortress. Since Pronos is worthless at the moment, I'm not quite sure. I might send Hulk Smash down there to lead the charge, because if I don't have a big, scary monster leading the charge, I'm a little bit worried that my troops will just end up breaking and running. In fact, I'm extremely worried about that, because that's the kind of thing that tends to happen with Helix. And the archers won't help much because it's a siege, and firing arrows at people on the walls does not help much. So I'm gonna send Hulk Smash down here to take this fort. Take this as a sign that I'm not immediately desperately concerned about this situation. So long as I pull back, load up with gems, and change my tactics, I can deal with this. And I'm not sure... Now, full disclosure, I'm not sure what else he has that might destroy me. I mean, I know he has Conjuration 5, which means he can also spam elementals. And spamming elementals would be problematic, because he has full-size elementals and I don't. Yet, I'm getting there. But if he spends a whole bunch of fire and earth gems spamming a whole bunch of full-size elementals, backed up by Howl. Well, actually, my tyrants could bash their way through elementals without too much trouble. I mean, honestly, that might be easier to deal with than Skelespam for me, just because it doesn't take up as much squares and it doesn't take as long to kill. Yeah, actually, I'd be okay with that. I would be okay if he decided to do that. That would be okay with me. So, that's going to be the turn, and I will see you in turn 29. Alright, turn 29 of Honor. I was just looking around the map counting provinces real quick. I believe I'm competitive. Right now I have 31 provinces. That's almost exactly the same as Pythium over here. Probably similar to Agartha. Agartha owns pretty much this whole chunk of territory, I think. He is besieging Ulm. Ulm has gone AI. Apparently that happened last turn and I didn't notice because I am an unperceptive person. But... yeah, he's gone AI now. As has, of course, Arcocephale, and Nazca, and Phasia. So we're down 5 players in total. We have 4 AIs and 1 that was AI and that has now been defeated. So the field is definitely narrowing, and the field of those who are in competition for winning the game is also narrowing. I think I'm still in it with 31 provinces. Pythium, I believe, is still in it. Celeria is not. Celeria has effectively been knocked out at this point. Ermor also is not. Ermor has effectively been knocked out. I was talking with Agartha, and it sounds like Agartha is going to be concentrating a little more seriously on dealing with Ermor, but basically Ermor is not in contention at this point. Abyssia, I actually don't know how big Abyssia is, because I don't have any scout coverage over in this whole part of the world, but I do know that Abyssia stretches at least to... Where is Abyssia itself? Because I had a scout in Abyssia at one point, and he got killed, I believe. That's Vanheim. Maybe not. But I know that Abyssia is here and here, and that's all up to Tianchi. So Abyssia has provinces all the way up somewhere along here, and I think around here is where he meets Ashdod. So Abyssia also has a big chunk of territory. Ashdod has a significant chunk of territory. Ashdod owns all this up here, which used to be Arcocephale, probably up to Ulm, and he may be eating some of Ulm's territory. He is also rolling into Shinuyama's territory with 300 giants. A charge led by over 60 Anakites, and several Zamzamites and Talmai elders. So he's coming in hot and heavy, in a big way. Shinuyama is down to about 19 provinces, and is not long for this world. It's not going to go well for him. At all. I think I may have changed my moves somewhat since I recorded the last video. I knew Shinuyama was going to move here, and I didn't have the forces left after that defeat last turn to attack him effectively. I could have attacked him from here. I moved back into my castle to bulk up on gems, which is why I have almost no gems. I didn't feel like I had the resources to attack him effectively, so I pulled back to concentrate forces. I also, however, sent Genocidicles up here to besiege Shinuyama. I may have actually talked about this last time. I don't quite remember. Anyway, he succeeded. He besieged Shinuyama. Done some research, didn't find any magic sites there. You can see here that Agartha is moving in on AI Ulm's capital and wiping him out with a stack of sacreds. In Nazca, you can see the forces of Ashdod came in and wrecked one Bakemono chief. So let's look at this battle real quick, just to see his bless. This is interesting. I did not expect this tactic, for sure. He's got 8 Rephite Sages, all of whom are astral randoms. He's got 2 Zamzumites, one of whom has a point of astral, and one of whom has a crystal matrix to allow him to command communion slaves. And his Rephite Sages are all casting communion slave. So when they do this, the Zamzumite's paths all go up by 3, making him effectively 4 earth, 4 astral, 6 death, and 4 holy. He's a level 4 priest. His infantry are advancing, so now he's going to use that level 4 holy magic to let Kothar, who is carrying a bunch of earth gems, and Rishon is carrying a bunch of earth and fire gems for what reason I'm not entirely sure, but he's going to cast Divine Blessing to hit all of his Rephites with his bless at once. His blessing is Twist Fate and Awe, so he's basically given all of his Rephites immunity to the first hit, all of his Anakites rather, immunity to the first hit, and anyone attacking them has to make a morale check, and if they fail, they don't attack. Ironically, this is normally not a terribly high-quality bless. But ironically, against me, it would actually be quite effective, because my Helots all have low morale, and so probably would not pass an Awe check. Which irritates me a little bit, but in any case. So he's got a big line of Sheshai Anakites here, and a bunch of random woodsmen that he recruited for some reason. In the back, he's got a line of Gileadite archers. He's got his 8 sages, who are backing up his Zamzumites, who are just scale spamming. And I think they are off script. He may not have scripted them for the full 5 turns, because that guy just cast Raise Dead, and Kothar just cast Invulnerability on himself, which is not normally all that valuable. I mean, yeah, it gives him protection against mundane attacks. That's great, but he doesn't really need it. Anyway, the Anakites are just going to charge in and lay waste to this one hapless Bakemono who is just standing here with only 1 harm and 6 hit points. And yep, there he goes. Okay, you were a brave little goblin. But yeah, this is a very significant force. 8 sages, a Talmai Elder, I didn't even see him do anything, 2 Zamzumites, and an Adon. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 cap-only slow-to-recruit mages, plus 8 standard mages, leading 35 of his limited recruitment cap-only sacreds. There was also a battle in Caves of Mira. He lost a couple of human slaves here, but this is very much the same thing. He doesn't have the communion here, he just has 2 Talmai Elders. And he just rushed in with troops and wiped out a little bit of province defense, so that's fine. Unexpected events. This is a fascinating one. Sextus the Stalker has joined me. He's an Eludian Stalker, which means he's one of the best assassins in the game. Stat-wise, extremely good. Assassin 3, Stealthy 80, Ambidextrous 3, and Ethereal. So 75% of normal attacks just miss him outright. I am absolutely going to gear this guy up and use him to murder enemy commanders. I need gems in order to forge equipment, which at the moment I don't have, but step 1, actually I should have done this before, step 1 is going to be forging him some armor. Because with him being ethereal, adding armor to that just makes it even more hilarious. It makes him even more hilariously tough, I should say. So I could forge him a black steel plate right now. I may just do that, because, I mean, it gives him a bunch of protection. It lowers his map move, but his map move is pretty good, to be honest. I mean, he can get all the way to the capital in 1 turn. Yeah, I kind of want to keep the map move, so I'm going to have to wait for gems a little bit. I'll probably have to forge him some air armor or something, like... weightless scale mail wouldn't be bad. A silver hauberk would actually be pretty good. Or a bright mail haubergen. Well, bright mail haubergen really doesn't matter. Weightless scale mail, lightweight scale mail. I don't see there's much difference between those two, to be honest. Ideally, to be honest, I would forge him one that gives him a morale bonus, which would be a fire one. So like the Red Dragon scale mail, which gives him decent body protection and +4 morale, because of course if you rout from an assassination, you are automatically killed. And so I definitely want his morale to be as high as possible. But I will gear this guy up and use him as a consummate assassin, because he is. With Assassin 3, he's very likely to evade any bodyguards. With Ethereal, he's very hard to kill, except with magic spells. With Stealthy 80, he's not going to be detected by any reasonable number of patrollers. Unless he moves onto a Blood Mage's fort who is blood hunting their fort, or he's just super, super unlucky. And with Ambidextrous 3, he can wield multiple weapons easily without taking any penalty. So like this short sword I will absolutely replace. The Poison Dagger I might keep, because the Poison Dagger is pretty decent, but I will absolutely give him some like armor-piercing or armor-negating magic weapons, and use him for the purposes of murder. Giving him a coral blade wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It gives him extra hit points. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I could even give him Shambler Skin Armor if I wanted to give him water breathing. That would be kind of hilarious. So over here, movement mechanics are a thing here. So I did besiege Shinuyama, and we can view that battle real quick. It wasn't terribly interesting. This is my standard Tyrant script, which I didn't activate last time, and I should have. I've got it in the wrong order here. I have him summoning Earth Power first. He should be casting Iron Skin first, just for protective reasons. He did still get it up before any arrows came in. But the basic script is Iron Skin, summon Earth Power, Fire Shield, and attack. The reason I should have had Fire Shield up in that last turn that I lost, because anyone that attacks him gets hit by the Fire Shield, and it's more effective against people with short weapons. Well, wolves and most long dead have short weapons, and these goblins also have short weapons. So you can see, first of all, he's just murdering them very quickly, but also the ones who attack him will start to take a little bit of damage, or they would if they weren't being killed before it could really happen. This isn't a great show-off, but when he's surrounded by, with the Frostbrand and the Mace of Eruption, he's just killing 2 squares around. When he's surrounded by enemies who are relatively low quality and all attacking him, the Fire Shield will be constantly doing armor-piercing damage back to people who are, especially wolves, because wolves attack with length 0 weapons. So any wolf who bites a fire-shielded tyrant will take a 10 AP damage hit and probably die, because wolves don't have many HP. So what that does is it effectively increases the rate at which tyrants can kill chaff very, very quickly. So multiple tyrants with Fire Shield should be able to mow through a huge pile of chaff like this army can summon. Now this is the 2 armies from last turn combined, so I bet it has like 8 or 10 Bakemono sorcerers in it. And of course it's going to cast Howl. So, what I would ideally I would like this army and this army to combine, because this army has most of the magical power, and this army has 3 tyrants. And those 3 tyrants, all fire shielded, all fighting in the front line, could provide a huge chaff clearing force. Unfortunately, the way movement mechanics in Dominions work make that risky. Here's how it works. Let's say that I'm attacking from this province into this province. Okay, if this army stays here, then I will move in and we will fight a battle. If this army moves, I am unlikely to be able to catch it. If it moves to friendly territory, I can never catch it. If it moves to enemy territory, it's slower, and I have a chance of catching it, but it's not a guarantee, since I am moving to enemy territory and it is moving to enemy territory. If I am moving to a friendly province, and it is moving to that same friendly province, then my army will arrive first. And then it and whatever defenders are in the province have the opportunity to fight this army together. So one way to do this, if I think he's going to move here, I can move this whole army over here and patrol. And that actually might not be a bad idea. I've been vacillating over what to do for a while now, because I'm not sure where he's going to go. Because the problem is, if this army attacks here and this army attacks here at the same time, and his army stays put, then all is fine and everybody fights together. But if his army attacks one or the other province, then there is a random chance, but a good chance, that he will end up fighting one of my armies in isolation, and the other army will move into this province. So to make sure that that was clear, Army A, Army B. Army A and Army B are trying to attack Army C. Army C is going to go somewhere. I mean, I don't imagine he's going to sit still and let me attack him, unless he is very, very confident he can win. Which he might be, but I don't know. I need to move him to a different province, by the way. You can go down there. Anyway, But if he moves to Province A or Province B, probably this army is going to fight the army they are moving towards, while the other army moves in behind them and misses them. This army, I think, can take this army alone. This army cannot. This army does not have hardly any magical backup to its 3 tyrants, and those 3 tyrants, I mean, they're tough. They would do a lot of damage, especially with the fire shield. You saw in that battle, you know, my 1 tyrant, Big McLarge Huge, got 130 kills before he was brought down. But there were hundreds more chaff still surrounding him. I don't think... And his chaff generation capabilities have increased, because I know there was at least 1 Bakemono sorcerer in the army that moved down here. So I don't think 3 tyrants without any real magical backup could cut their way through all that chaff. Which means that if I were to attack with both armies, and he were to attack in this direction, he would hit me halfway past, probably. There's a chance it would work. There's a chance that I would catch him in this province with both armies and destroy him. But more likely what would happen is he would meet me, like here, in this province, in Delca, and he would fight only these troops. So 3 tyrants, with a few gigantes, and about 100 helots. And no real magic. Because the only magic I have here... I mean, I have some slaves. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I technically have 8 slaves. So I would have 1 functional level 4 mage, or I could have 2 level 3 mages. But I don't have good nature research, so there will be no point making this guy a commander. This guy, he has gems, he can do some magical work, but 1 mage and 100 crap troops backing up 3 tyrants against 130 or 120 decent troops and literally hundreds and hundreds of wolves and undead. I don't think it would work. I just don't think it would work. So, I have to play a guessing game, kind of, because I have to guess what he's going to do. If I believe he's going to attack this fort, then the proper counter move is to move all these guys, this whole damn army, over here on move and patrol orders. Like that. And to set all these guys to patrol province. If I were to do that, I mean, that would tank my research for one thing, somewhat. I would need to shift something around so I can get conjuration level 3 this turn, or level 4 this turn. If I do that and he moves here, then he's going to fight 4 tyrants, plus my whole army, plus this whole army, and be annihilated. I don't think he can stop that, no matter how much skill spam he has. To let you know, my tactical change here has been, you can see I've given all these guys gems, and since I reached Conjuration 3, in my messages, I actually researched Evocation level 5 to get Storm Power. But since I have Conjuration level 3, every single one of these mages is spamming out, Summon Lesser Elementals, Air Elementals and Fire Elementals. The reasons for that are, Air Elementals can fly and trample, so they will be flying all over the battlefield, hopefully getting into the back lines and distracting the mages and reducing the amount of skill spam I have to hack through. And the Fire Elementals have a fire shield and are ethereal, so they're very, very hard to kill. So they can move directly into the skill spam and burn their way through it pretty effectively. It's not foolproof, the Fire Elementals do die, but all I have to do is keep the volume down low enough for my 4 tyrants to smash their way through. And if the tyrants can smash their way through, then it's all over. If they get onto the Bakemono sorcerers, those sorcerers are dead. So, I think that will work. And then after I've used up my gems, I have these guys casting air elementals. So overall, I would have 12 air elementals, 9 fire elementals, more air elementals from him, and then I have my guys going on to cast thunder strikes to back up the army. And of course, I have almost 300 troops between these two, so I have plenty of coverage. So I think that would work. if he runs into both armies at the same time, it works. Here's the downside. The problem is, if he doesn't move here, this is completely a wasted move. I think this army could probably take him on without this one. Even with only one tyrant heading them up. I think this army can handle this army with the elemental spam, because a smaller army than this, with less magic than this army, and one tyrant, lost to the spam. But in the process, it killed all of his units, pretty much. Like, almost all that was left was the Bakemono sorcerers. And, of course, the spammed out creatures. So all I have to do is increase the rate at which I kill creatures or disrupt his ability to summon creatures. And I can win that fight. To be honest, I still feel like that fight would have been at least much closer if I had remembered to script Fire Shield. So it depends on where I think he's going to go. And at this point, I almost think he's going to retreat, because this over here is not stoppable with what I've seen from him. It's just not. Maybe this fort has enough stuff to stop it, but he doesn't have enough recruitment centers. He's got a fort there that I have under siege, so he can't recruit anything this turn, and a fort there. Bakemono sorcerers are slow to recruit, so he's going to lose Nazca. The fortification has already been breached by this besieging army of giants. This army is going to roll in. They might roll in this way and take the throne and keep going. Although that pass is currently blocked because there's cold here. I think Ashdod's Dominion might be cold. A pile of bones. A pile of bones is cold and death. Who's a pile of bones again? No, a pile of bones is Nazca. Okay, Nazca's Dominion is cold. Gotcha. So, this army may well just chug down through here and keep going into Greater Shinuyama. Basically, all I have to do is hold him off and he loses. I don't win as much as I would have liked to, but he most definitely loses. So, in a way, I kind of think he's going to attack, because actually beating me is the only way he comes out of this with anything like a positive result. But on the other hand, he doesn't have the troops to spare. I mean, he's got this freight train of giants coming down on him. I don't know if he thinks he can beat this. Great Gray Shrike does not talk much. It's hard to get into his head to that degree. So yeah, I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, my performance in our one last battle, pretty poor. But boy, it's a tough one. See, if I make this move and he besieges this fort, which he could do, my troops would move out, he would besiege the fort, my army would then be all together, but his army would be in my territory. At that point, it kind of becomes a raid and counter-raid game. Because we'd both be basically taking territory from each other while trying to prevent the other from taking territory from us, while trying to intercept each other's armies. It would become extremely messy, and it wouldn't be resolved quickly. I would win, I am confident, because he would be in my territory where I have recruitment, and I would run him out of gems, so that he couldn't cast Howl very, very quickly, because he wouldn't be able to capture any of my forts. I would keep enough troops on his tail to prevent him from doing that. And he would run out of troops, and then it would be just the Bakemono sorcerers. And the Bakemono sorcerers are good, and Skelespam is a great raiding tactic, but if nothing else, I could try to predict where he was going and just crank the province defense, because enough province defense will overwhelm a Bakemono sorcerer Skelespamming. It's a lot of province defense that it takes to do that, but that's an option. And, of course, tyrants, if it's only the sorcerers left, 2 or 3 tyrants would absolutely ruin them. And I am constantly recruiting tyrants, and I have 7 forts about to be 8, pumping out troops continuously. So it would be a losing game for him to go into a raiding contest with me. That said, I don't know that he has winning options right at the moment. He cannot fight off both me and Ashdod at once, and he has to know it. So we'll see what happens. I think I am... So basically I have the defensive option or the offensive option. Actually I have 3 options. I could sit still and have all of these guys recruit slaves, which would instantly boost this army by over 50 dudes, and recruit another wizard. Actually, since I have 8 slaves already, I would recruit another Trophimos Oppressor, doubling magic capacity of this army. That makes me stronger. He doesn't get any stronger, but he also doesn't get any... He doesn't get any stronger at all. I get significantly stronger. And I'm just playing a waiting game at that point. Genocidicles would probably go over here. He would continue to raid Shinoyaman territory. And what I would do is... He's got enough stuff in there that he's probably going to come break the siege. So I would move Genocidicles away, let him break the siege, and then the turn after that... He would probably start patrolling. I mean, kind of a guessing game. If he doesn't put province defense up, then the turn after that, I can attack him with a scout and take the province. Which would be silly, but possible. Also, he lost a province this turn to barbarians. It is just not Great Gray Shrike's day. Anyway, I'm still working on that. I could sit still, which would be, like, almost no risk, almost no reward. If he attacked me, he would just besiege a fort, and I wouldn't actually lose anything. And then he would be in the position of having to deal with the fact that I could then immediately concentrate on him unless he moved away. If I move, I can move over here. That loses me a bunch of research, but it has the potential of, if I've guessed where he's moving, catching his army and destroying it. Or I could attack with this army and Genocidicles into this province. If he stays still, I have a battle, and I probably win. If he attacks this fort, there's a battle which I still probably win, and he would be completely destroyed because Genocidicles moves down here. If he attacks this fort, I don't kill him, but he's cut off. If he moves back... Yeah, that's honestly probably the best thing. I think that's the best thing. And then these guys, I'm not going to set them to patrol. We're going to set them all into research, except these 3 are all going to capture slaves. Okay. I think this is the best course of action. I think it has the best possible... I think it has the largest number of possible good outcomes for me. Because, like I said, I believe that this army can take this army. I think I've got the oomph. Infantry-wise, this army is actually a little bit scanter than the army that he fought earlier, but it's extremely archer-heavy. Well, and it seems infantry lighter because I've put a big line of infantry right at the back, which will help protect me from howls. I don't know, it's tricky. It's tricky, man. Scripting is consistently my worst skill in Dominions. And so I just don't know if what I've scripted is enough to beat his howling. But I'm going to give it a try. You should maybe give an air gem. What do I have that guy with 1 air gem scripted to do? 1 second. Oh yeah, he's casting Storm, summoning Storm Power, and then Thunder Striking. I have to cast Storm in order to use Storm Power. I might actually not want to use Storm, though. Because Storm, it decreases the accuracy of my arrows, and I have a lot of archers. I have a lot more archers than he does. It helps with Thunder Striking. The reason why I'm trying to cast Storm is it helps with summoning air elementals. Because look, I have 17 slaves, I think, if I've counted correctly. Air elemental, well, summoning lesser air elementals is already going to cost almost no fatigue. Yeah, just cancel that. Cast Air Shield as a first round buff, and then just start... Yeah, summon a lesser air elemental, and then start thunder striking. Okay. Yeah, do that. I don't need storm. I really don't. Summon storm power is unimportant, so cast... Why don't you cast Mirror Image instead? Good defensive buff for my Communion Slaves. Power, and we've got Mist Form going off as well, so we're going to have... My Communion Slaves are going to be nearly invincible. Iron Skin, Mist Form, Mirror Image. They are going to be tough to deal with. And Air Shield, so arrows won't even kill them. So they will be very, very hard to kill, which is exactly what I'm hoping for. Ironically, my Communion Masters will actually be easier to kill than my Communion Slaves, because they won't have stacking buffs, and some of them won't have any defensive buffs at all. I just kind of have to roll with that. I just pretty much have to hope that they don't die. This is a big enough Communion that I actually don't need the bows, because I don't need them on fire, I need them on cast spells. You're on cast spells, good. So we're going to take the bows away, we're going to put them back in the lockers. With this many slaves, even casting off-path spells, I have Earth Power active to give 4 reinvigoration per turn from Nereus. And when I have this many slaves, 4 reinvigoration per turn will mostly keep them going. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 slaves. So every spell that I cast, first of all, I'm boosted up to level 5. Which means that the spells that I'm casting, which are at most level 3, are giving me a very small amount of fatigue. Then it's divided 19 ways. So like Thunderstrike, for example, that he's casting. Thunderstrike is a 50 fatigue spell. He's level 5, it's a level 3, so that cuts it down to 12.5. Then it's divided 17 ways. That cuts it down to below 1. Then it cuts it down to like 0.7. Then it's multiplied by 4 to come out to almost 3. And so the air slaves take, I think, 1 fatigue from it. And the non-air slaves take 3. And now I have a bunch of people casting spells, but most of them are not as fatiguing as Thunderstrike. Like, for example, summoning fire elementals, that costs 100 fatigue, but it's a level 1 spell that costs a gem. So for a level 5 mage casting a level 1 spell, let me see, that cuts it in half 4 times over, if I've done my math correctly. So 50, 25, 12.5, 6. 6.25 fatigue. Divided 17 ways, and then multiplied by 4. It's nothing. It's 1 fatigue per round. Of course, you have to add encumbrance. They do have encumbrance. But even so, it doesn't push it up to the point where it's a problem. I believe, if I've done my math correctly, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 masters casting on 18 slaves, I believe they will be actually taking almost 0 fatigue per round net after the Earth Power subtracts its 4. So we should be fine. For this Communion should be able to cast until and unless the masters rout, which hopefully they won't. So anyway, that's the plan there. This fort, I've had a long, intense discussion with Tianxi about this fort, because Tianxi really wants this fort, and I can understand why. For one thing, it's a fort. For another thing, it is kind of threatening for me to have 4 forts right next to his borders. And for a third thing, this mountain blocks a movement from this province north, so in order to get to Ashdod, who he wants to fight, he would have to go all the way around and fight Ashdod in this direction. He would rather come up this way. I understand. Unfortunately, it's also my only path through, so we had a bit of a tense conversation about it. In the end, I decided to let him have the fort, for a couple of reasons. It does have 2 fire gems per turn, which I really, really want, but I already have decent fire income. Letting him have the fort keeps my flank secure, at least for a while, keeps the non-aggression pact that we have in place. And it brings him into this war in a useful way as a potential bulwark against Ashdod. He and Ashdod are going to be fighting sometime soon. I just hope, what I'm hoping is, Ashdod gets about this far and is then stopped, while I roll up Shinuyama's armies here and clear out his central pocket. That would be the ideal ending. Particularly me getting this fort and this throne would be the ideal endings. So this army that I have right here is actually just moving on into Shinuyama territory, and I'm going to use it to claim Ban Kish. These forces are going to move over in this direction to join the push this way, including another Trophimos Oppressor and 3 air random slaves. I'm still recruiting shackled mages and infantry just willy-nilly in Marignan. Over here, I should go back to recruiting cataphracts, I think, because they're pretty neat. Cataphracts and archers, how about it? Yeah, let's do that. And then down here, I can actually recruit heavy cavalry here, but they cost a lot of resources, and this province doesn't actually have a huge quantity of resources. I can get 5, I think. I can't get 5, I can get 4. But yeah, I mean, having heavy cavalry is always a good thing. It's more of a good thing during expansion, but even in wars between players, having some heavy cavalry is good. So I think we're going to do that down here. Get 3 heavy cav and some Heelot warriors per turn. So these forts will be churning out effectively. Cataphracts and heavy cavalry are almost identical, although they cost different amounts of resources. Heavy cavalry, I think, have slightly higher defense, if I recall correctly. That's a Heelot archer. Yeah, heavy cavalry have slightly higher defense. But so I'll be churning out effectively 6 armored heavy cavalry per turn, which isn't a bad place to be, plus a few miscellaneous infantry and such. Pernos has not healed himself yet. His afflictions have gotten worse. He's now crippled and has lost an arm. So, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to forge him a ring of regeneration to put on him in order to keep him from losing hit points until he can heal up. The only person in my nation who can do that currently is HULK SMASH, who is besieging this fortress. They're going to storm the castle. HULK SMASH is going to cast Iron Skin and Personal Regeneration to push his protection up and give himself a bunch of extra hit points per turn. Now, he has a big Dominion penalty here, which is a little bit scary. Yeah, I'm actually going to move him back a little bit so he'll have chaff, because that's a little bit frightening, having this negative Dominion here. But I've got to go in. I've got to take this fort. And I'm worried that without HULK SMASH, I might not be able to do it, just because I'm worried that my Helots might rout even if they're winning. It's only random Phaeacian units in here. I don't think they even have any mages, so it shouldn't be a problem, but I have seen too many things that shouldn't be a problem end up being a problem when it comes to Phlegran infantry, so I'm gonna send in the Hulk here. And he's gonna have 25 protection, which isn't as high as I would want, but is high. And he's gonna be regenerating, so he'll be regenerating 9 hit points per turn, which is better than nothing. And he's gonna go in and do the best he can. So that is gonna be the turn. Very soon here, I want to take Step of Wild Horses. I just haven't had the troops freed up to do it. I mean, I can't pull troops away from this nonsense. Sending in these 3 tyrants would absolutely wipe out this province, but I can't pull them away right now. They've got to stand here threatening Shinuyama and massing troops for me. I'm recruiting another tyrant. Once I have some gems back, I'll be forging some more gear, but my gem income is not high enough to permit a lot of forging, and I've spent a lot of gems on gear so far. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 at least half-geared tyrants. Every one of those represents at least 15 or 20 gems worth, so that's 20 gems. Slab Brickjaw is more than that. Astarius. I did get the main Gauches free, which was nice. Thank you, Ulm. I really, really appreciate that. But even so, you see my point. It's a lot of gems tied up in these 5 units. And I think they're worth it in the sense that they open up tactical options to me. Like, without Idiocrates, this battle would be much more dicey. As it is, I think I can win it. Yeah, assuming he moves in this direction. But you get my point. So that's going to be the turn. I will see you in turn 30, where we'll find out if Shinuyama fell into my quote-unquote trap, and whether it worked, or whether they... Honestly, I would be fine with them pulling back, or even taking this province, because then I get to mass up my forces. and I get another turn of building up here. And as long as I can build up faster than he can, basically is my point. So every turn we don't have a decisive battle that I lose is fine by me. If we have a decisive battle and I win, that's also fine by me, because I can replace losses faster than he can. But if we don't have a decisive battle, okay, I'll keep on keeping on. So thanks for watching, and take care, everybody. Pretty soon things will get very, very exciting. Currently they're only pretty exciting, but we will see what the future brings when it comes to Ashdod. No news on the Pythium front. Everything seems good there, so in any case, take care. Alright, it is Honor turn 30, and things are actually going okay. Over here, Shinoyama did what I kind of anticipated he would do, although I didn't make the right counter move exactly, but I made an okay counter move. Also, I got to see this entire army. It's actually only 6 sorcerers. I was afraid it was like 10, but he only moved 1 extra sorcerer in. So it's still a relatively small army overall, and it only has 6 guys skeleton spamming behind it, so I will definitely destroy this army. In fact, probably these 3 could bust through, but not going to risk it. I'm going to send 5. So, all of my troops here, plus all of my troops here, are breaking the siege. I have quite a few more troops here because I was capturing slaves. Also, I actually want to check. Yeah, I can't capture slaves. Can I? Nope, I can't capture slaves when I am besieged. What a shame. So, everybody, break siege. So, in total, I am taking a lot of power into this fight. Because basically I have a lot of excess power, and I want to crush this army because it's like half of his total nation's armed forces right now. 6 sorcerers, an Uba, and about 90 units. He's got about 60 units here and 30 here. He does have some units up here, but it's mainly Bakemono shows and his research mages, Ubas. So that's not much of an army. If I can break this, I think the way will be pretty much clear for me to move forward. What else? Over here, I took Dunster. It was just province defense. A Nazcan Hydromancer then moved into Dunster, and I killed him, which is fine. I also took the fortress of Oak Beach, which was the fortress down south that I was attacking at Phasia. And you remember how I had said I didn't anticipate much by way of magic here? I was wrong. He has 1, 2, 3, 4 wind callers here, plus a Colossi Weaver, and a bunch of ogres that have been summoned, but otherwise it's just infantry. So, my Pretender God here is going to Iron Skin and then cast not personal regeneration. I was about to say personal luck, which is not true. The Heavy Cavalry and the Cyclops go in immediately, together with these soldiers. Cyclops against ogres is actually a decent fight. Cyclops basically are ogres, just a little bit better and recruitable with money instead of summoned, so that's nice. My infantry are going to go in. Now, these 4 mages are all going to spam lightning bolts and phantasmal warriors and things on me, which is a little bit unfortunate. But nothing that I can't handle. The unfortunate bit is actually that HULK SMASH has gotten trapped behind the archers and is too dumb to get out. So, or behind the warriors throwing their javelins, rather. So the warriors are going into melee. HULK SMASH is continuously getting stuck. A little bit of a cluster around the entrance until the helix begin to rout. Some of them rout very quickly, some of them rout only a little bit later. My one sage back here is also throwing lightning bolts and... or no, he's throwing numbness, that's right, because he's a water mage. Unfortunately, he also routs at this point. I'm not sure why he wasn't hit, but he ran. However, most of the Phaesian infantry is cleared out just as my archers charge into melee, and HULK SMASH is now breathing his poison all over everything and poisoning all of my own troops, which is, you know, what he likes to do. The Cataphracts lead the charge, the survivors, and we basically just mop up the enemy infantry while their mages run. So, not a terribly difficult battle. I say not terribly difficult, of course. I did still take heavy healet casualties, and a bunch more retreated. Also, my mage was killed when retreating into enemy territory, which happens sometimes. So some losses, overall worth it. Especially because I now have a new mage recruitment center with a lab and a mine that brings in 100 gold. So I am all kinds of pleased about this. I am just pleased as punch. I'm starting to recruit Shackled Magi down here. Hulk Smash is forging a Ring of Regeneration. The Shroud has worked on Pronos to the extent that it has removed one of his afflictions. He still has a lost arm, but he can heal that as well. He still has the disease, so he's still losing hit points. He's got about 3 or 4 turns left before he dies. The Ring of Regeneration, when I put it on him, should stop him from losing hit points. And then he should be able to recuperate over time. Although I think I'm going to have to actually send him into combat for the ring to work. So that will be interesting. AI Nazca has taken this province back. After that long discussion with Tianxi, I decided to move on. So I'm taking Dunster and Ostmark. Interestingly, it looks like I am getting the income from Dunster. I guess because I can trace a line to a fort across a river that's not frozen. I don't know. I didn't think that was possible. But in any case... So, Tianxi should come and take the Royal Green at some point. I'm not sure if he's seen my last message. Hopefully. But in any case, we're in a pretty good spot, to be honest. I've recruited a new Tyrant. I'm actually not sending him to go fight immediately. I'm moving him over here to search this province for death, because it does have death scales, which makes me think there's a death site there. I also need to cast... Dark Knowledge has a range of... Yeah, Dark Knowledge only has a range of 3. So 1, 2, 3. I can't cast Dark Knowledge on Jintmark from here. So Leprosy needs to move down here. Sorry, excuse me. And then cast Dark Knowledge. I don't really want him to go into that province because he might get diseased, but I do want to learn. Of course, I cannot actually construct forts underwater with my sad merpeople. So my sad merpeople are just going to kind of have to sit here and be sad. But at least they're getting me about 140 income between these two provinces, so that's nice. It's good to have, and it's a little bit of a blocker for Divmore, which has a lab already. I would like to build something in Divmore, but don't really have the time right at the moment. Everybody's busy. It would just be another mage recruitment center, basically, if I built a fort here. It wouldn't be anything special. There's no recruitment points here, there's no resources here, there's very little income. But since there's already a lab, if I build a fort, I can start pumping out Trophimos, which would be nice. So, it's hard to see what this army is going to do. They could try to shift over here and attack this fort. I'm not sure if my breaking the siege... I think breaking the siege happens after they move out, so it wouldn't catch them. Honestly, since I have 2 guys spamming air elementals, this army alone might be able to take them. Since I know they only have 6 sorcerers, and I do have 3 Phlegran Tyrants. They don't all have magic resistance boosting gear, which kind of worries me a little bit. But even so, their natural magic resistance is fairly high. And I do have a lot more troops now than I did last turn. Yeah, fire at the closest enemy, I guess. I don't have flaming arrows on this army, which is a little bit of a worry. But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like with the 3 fire-shielded tyrants up front, I feel like I could probably do it. Which almost makes me want to split my forces here. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 communion slaves. The problem is, these 2 would not have much by way of communion support. But, 1, 2, 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15? I thought have I miscounted something? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18, that's more like it. What I could do here is I could split up. Because I could take, let's say, 2, because they have, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have 7. I can spare 2 communion slaves. So I could take 2 communion slaves and one more air elemental guy. Right now I have 1, 2, 3 air elemental, 4 air elemental guys, and 3 fire elemental guys. I could take those 3 and move down here. And then I could take all the rest of these guys and move back to my fort. Because I'm wondering if what he's going to try to do isn't... We're really playing a guessing game here. If I break loose with this army and he stays there, he'll fight them, and he might win that fight without support. Especially because they don't have enough slaves to boost up to a reasonably high-level communion, and so them summoning air elementals is going to be fatigue expensive and run the communion down quickly. And they don't have anybody scripted to cast defensive buffs at the moment. They're just spamming air elementals, so their communion slaves are flimsy. If I move in 2 more communion slaves and another master, that ameliorates that situation a lot, assuming they fight there. If I move my army down here, that provides a shield against them deciding to bounce over here to try and get free and besiege my fortress for a turn and then move out into their own territory. What it doesn't do is stop them from moving straight back. So we're really just kind of trying to guess what the other will do. If he moves straight backwards and I move in with the whole army, then he runs into my army face first and dies. If he moves over here, he probably gets loose. If he moves into my territory, I chase him down with some troops and send other troops to start taking all of his territory. Great Grey Shrike, I think, tends to be fairly aggressive. But he can't be too aggressive because he's losing all of his territory right now. I'm about to take this. Nazca was just taken by Ashdod. We can see that battle here. Let's watch that battle, actually. It'll be interesting to see. This is all, of course, just AI, so they're not very well scripted, but let's see how they did. So Ashdod with their line of Anakites. Nazca is summoning some elementals. What are those? Tiny miniature air elementals. Why does Nazca have size 1 earth elementals? That's weird. I don't know what those come from. There must be a national spell of some kind. They've got some soulless, lots of undead. They do have some Malkis. They have a royal Malki with, it looks like only an Inca. And up here they have their prophet, who is just a regular Malki with a dancing trident. They also have an Inca back there. And an Inca... Oh, they have a national hero. Oh, this is where it comes from. Okay, so their national hero here has an earth elemental and 5 tiny earth elementals near him. Interesting. And of course he's mummified. He's got storm immunity. He's a great leader, has awe, earth, air, and fire. Okay, that's pretty cool. Then down here they have a Huron priest, another royal Malki with just an Inca, so it looks like they probably weren't recruiting many Koyas, and then a bunch of Condor warriors and some giant scorpions. And Chaff up front, of course. So he's got flaming arrows cast for his woodsman. He's got all his guys blessed, of course, with that Twist Fate Awe blessing. Looks like lots of fire darts coming in from Nazca, which is not a particularly great way of combating Anakites. In fact, it's not a great way of combating anything. You can see when they flash bright like that, that means they've been affected by Awe, and so aren't attacking. And the Anakites are just cutting their way through the opposition with hardly a pause. They're kind of masked up right now because they're fighting the Earth Elementals, I guess? What was that? Curse of Stones? I think he just cast Curse of Stones. Or was it Decree of the Underworld? No, it was Decree of the Underworld, I guess. So what does Decree of the Underworld do again? I don't even remember. Oh well, it clearly did not have much of an effect here. Yep, the Anakites are through, and it all goes downhill for Nazca from here. Berserking, Crazed, Awe, Anakites. Lots of Syllable of Death going off, but it's really not affecting the Anakites much. And the armies of Nazca are massacred. They say routed, I say massacred. He lost 1 Anakite, 4 archers, and 9 woodsmen. And wiped out the defenses. So, that means that Ashdod now has 3 capitals, because he earlier took the capital of, Arcocephale. Also, Pythium and Celeria are now officially at war. If I don't mistake my guess. Pythium has sent a Theurg army down. This Theurg army, they have 23 Theurg communicants, which are communion slaves, which means that they are boosted by 4 paths to Air 5, Water 5, Astral 6. So let's see what Pythium is doing with their communion. First of all, so this is one of the problems with Theurg communicants. They stack up 3 to a square. So as opposed to my communions that's all scattered out, taking up more space and being a little bit less vulnerable, this communion is entirely packed into a very, very small space. Since Theurg communicants are units, they have to be controlled like units. That means they have to be in formation. So we've got our communion masters. We've got a divine blessing from the prophet Bigus Dickus. Ha! Who is sacred? So, reinvigoration, penetration, and HP. So that would be Earth 5 and Astral, like, 4, I think. Okay. And yeah, with the Communion, they have a magic boost of 4. So yeah, they're going to be essentially immune to fatigue in this Communion. And it looks like they are Thunderstriking. Yep, they're Thunderstriking, alright. So Pythium's Thunderstrike communions are honestly better than mine in terms of Thunderstriking, just because they have, and now they're Mind Burning. If for no other reason than because they have access to a lot of communion slaves very easily. We can look at the Theurg communicants, fatigue 35. I think they do take the extra fatigue for not having the paths in question, but despite not having the paths in question, they are still very, very hard to take down because, I mean, there are so many of them. Also, they have the blessing, so they have the extra reinvigoration, and they have a little bit of extra HP. And they're also lucky. Somebody cast Personal Luck. So that's good. That's an excellent defensive buff for Communion Slaves. So yeah, Pythium just kind of ran over Celeria's province defense there. It's interesting. And that was Celeria attacking Ermor. And holy crap, 6 lictors got 50 kills. What happened here? And what was Celeria doing? So this is Celeria trying to take back their fort. Their Thaumaturgs are all casting Twist Fate to protect themselves. Then we have these 50 Shadow Vestals. And a big blob of Hastati. A big blob. Losing my words once again. Okay, dropping the Blessing, Undying, HP, Blood Surge, and Undead Leadership. Okay, well, it's not a great bless, but it's something. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Lictors, of course, have their crazy Quickness, Regen, plus HP, Fortitude bless. Looks like the Thaumaturgs are now casting Dust to Dust, primarily, which is destroying some of the undead here. But the Lictors charge in on the Shadow Vestals. There's a lot of banishment going off as well. And yeah, those Lictors are not dying. And they are killing Shadow Vestals with every swing. Lots and lots of anti-undead spells. Oh, also I think no, the banishments shouldn't be hurting the Shadow Vestals. So yeah, the Lictors actually rout the Celerian infantry before finally being surrounded by the Shadow Vestals. And it looks like they rout the Shadow Vestals as well. Hold up. So who have they not routed? Oh. But the Ermorian troops also routed. Because, I hadn't even noticed. The Thaumaturgs, it looks like, have potentially communioned up. Yes, the Thaumaturgs have communioned up. And are now Skelispamming with the Grand Thaumaturgs. They only have, looks like only a couple of them have communioned, actually. But, there's some undead spam heading out here. And so the last Armorian lictor is run down and slowly beaten to death by skeletons, it looks like. Yep, run down and slowly beaten to death by skeletons. Still, 6 lictors, 50 kills, only 2 actually died. That is impressive. But the morale of the priests broke, and that's what drove Armor off the field. I got a Hurricane in Evoca. Can be a spell, can be a random event, not sure. Lost a little bit of income in Phlegra, which is a problem, but not a huge problem. And that was me taking Cerny. We can actually see my my huge army in action in Cerny. They didn't spend gems, fortunately. I don't think, because they still have all their gems. Yeah, they're just casting buffs. 1 heavy cavalry charging the enemy army. So yeah, you're all iron-skinned and earth-powered. And fire shielding. I think lots and lots of Legions of Steel going down, mostly on the archers, however. They don't really like to drop it on people who are in lines. Looks like they have caught the line of Heal It Warriors pretty much. And then we're throwing a couple of Thunder Strikes, some Phantasmal Warriors, some other buffs, a little bit of Acid Rain. Good stuff. Okay, so I've made most of my moves already. I need to check to make sure my scouts are moving. Yep, scout moving, scout moving. Scouts up here hanging out, doing what they do best. Seeing things. Gonna take Ostmark with this army. Gonna move down here. I feel like this army can probably do it, but I can't be sure. I don't really want to play catch with him is the thing. So I'm feeling like moving these guys down to join them. That pushes them over the 8 slave mark. And it gives them a few more elementals to back up their, to back up the Gigantes. It doesn't leave them with a huge number of troops. But I think the troops that they have will be sufficient. We've got troops closing off the back. We've got troops guarding the front. Put these guys up there, pull those guys back a little bit. So we've got the Communion fairly well locked off. We do have him casting Mist Form. Though they're both just summoning air elementals straight. But I think instead I will have him cast Earth Power and him cast Iron Skin. So we'll have Iron Skin, Mist Form, and Earth Power on all our Communion slaves. That'll be great. So I think this army can probably take this army if there's a fight. If anything, it might just be the Obakemonos breaking through the infantry that get me, but with 3... Tell you what I can do to help with that. I can send Genocidocles with these guys. And then these guys can all move down over here. This is Idiocrates' original army, basically, minus 2 slaves and 1 air elemental dude. So they can all move down there, or I can just move into Shinoyaman territory if I'm not worried about this. Honestly, I'm not too worried about it, so I may just do that. Like, I could go here. Take another province, reduce his income. I think that will almost hurt more than anything else. Because his income's got to be suffering. And he does not have much. I mean, unless he's expanding up in this direction, but this is like Agartha land. Agartha owns part of this and all of this, and I think Agartha has these farms and this stuff up here, especially because that's an Agarthan fortress. So I can't picture Shinoyama having expanded up here much. I think I don't have to worry about this army much. Either it's going to fight and die here, or it'll be... It will wither eventually as it raids my lands. Sorry, I kicked my mic again. So, that being so, well, tell you what, let's have Electos stand here capturing slaves. And we'll recruit a couple more Gigantes. Those 6 will go with him. 3 of them can be his personal bodyguard. We won't script him just yet. We're forging a little bit of equipment for him. We're forging a Mace of Eruption. I would also like to forge there's a couple things I would like to forge, actually. But I would like to use slaves to do it because they're low level. So he's already getting a mace. We can also forge a lodestone amulet for magic resistance purposes. And then you can forge a shield of valor for that air shield effect. Don't have enough magic gems. What do you mean? Oh, it's air gems. Yeah, I know I'm short on air gems. It's because I'm giving them all to people to summon elementals with. I could forge a pair of earth boots this turn, which might actually be nice to have as boosters. Don't need them yet. I'll think about it, but I don't need them yet. I'll forge him a black steel kite shield for the parry. That'll be fine. And then I think with the black steel kite shield, a mace, and a lodestone amulet, that will be basically all the equipment he needs to go out hunting. He could use a hat, actually, instead of a black steel kite shield. Black steel kite shield is secondary to hat. Black steel helmet will be fine. Okay, so that's going to be the turn. I have a couple people moving out site searching. This guy's site searching, this guy is site searching. Other than that, a lot of people doing a lot of research. As soon as I actually get a little more air income, I want to be spending most of my air gems pumping out quills, air quills. But in order to do that, I need to be not forging gear with my only hammer all the time, and I need to build up enough earth gems that I can forge a couple more hammers to hand out to people. Because if I can forge air quills for 3 gems per turn with a hammer, that's fine. If not, then it becomes a little bit, I want to save up water gems a little bit because later on in the game I want to be forging water bracelets and giving them to oppressors and having those oppressors summon green lions. So I don't want to alchemize my water gems. I also want to keep my death gems for now because I want to be able to do more with death later in the game by handing staffs to my tyrants to make them death 3 and using them to summon things and etc. But we will see where that goes. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in turn 31.